Let me say that at Apple, when Woz and Jobs incorporated Apple and it started to become a real company, and they hired me, and I started driving over to Steve Jobs' garage. See, and I'd grown up. Instead of riding my bicycle over, I was driving my little truck over. There was magic in the air at Apple.
You knew.
Because
Yeah.
so many of us had been, no, I felt.
Yeah.
There are so many of us had been dreaming for so many years of being able to create your own computer and for people to be able to have their own computers, that now we were making a computer that people could own and people could have and people could use. And every day something new was happening. For example, Woz would come back to the garage from the Homebrew Computer Club, and he'd say, "You've got to see this great color demo that this little high school kid named Chris Espinosa wrote." And he'd show something on the screen that would do amazing things. Well, that was a little later than the beginning, but it was very early in it. It was is an example of kind of like the magicalness of that period of time.
Everything was new. Yeah. It was fresh, and for the first time ever, you had your hands on it. You didn't have to go to the priesthood, go to the basement.
Well, it's not only new, it was empowering.
Yeah.
A dream that many technologists throughout the world, and particularly concentrated in Silicon Valley, which is why they had the Homebrew Computer Club.
Right.
We had hundreds of people there meeting together because they wanted to build their own computers. And they were saying, well, I got this old core memory from IBM that it was thrown out, and I've got this module or this assembly from DEC, and I want to see if there's some way I can cob them together to make it do something, okay? Well, we were going leaps and bounds beyond that by saying, okay, here is this one circuit. You can wire it together, and everything is there.
Yeah, amazing.
And then later, Jobs said, well, there's so much interest in this. Let's make the printed circuit boards and stuff it with the parts. Let's assemble the computer, and then all people will have to do is buy it. So that empowers an even less technical layer of people. So we were finally making it possible for this dream of people having their own computers to actually come true.
And that was the invention of the personal computer. Now, one of the interesting things about your career is that you worked not only on the Apple I and the Apple II, you later worked on the Macintosh. We'll get into the Macintosh in a little while. But on the Apple I and II, you were both a hardware engineer. You later specialized in UI design. So you've done so many things on so many different iconic computers. But can you tell us about what your role was exactly on the Apples I and II?
Sure. Well, to be correct, I was an electronic technician. And I was an electronic technician for maybe 15 years. Eventually, I grew into being an electronic engineer, although without a degree. And then I turned to programming and wrote software for Apple. And then I took up user interface design. And user interface design is what I've been doing professionally for the past maybe 30 years, both at Apple and then at other companies. Okay, so when Woz and Jobs incorporated and Jobs' father converted half of their garage to be Apple Computer, setting up workbenches and things, I was the gopher and the jack of all trades. I was the person who was always sent out to pick up parts from distributors, who was wiring things up, who was repairing things, who was breadboarding things. At one point, to be professional, we wanted to put a whole bunch of Apple I's into a cabinet of some sort that was heated up and that was under power, and so they would run for a day or two, and that's called burning in, so that any early failures would fail in the box, and then we could repair them, knowing that we would send out a reliable product. And this is the sort of thing that Hewlett-Packard would do. They would burn in their products and then fix the early failures before shipping them. Okay, so this was a huge kind of quality thing. And I built that box.
Oh, neat.
And I had to figure out how do you supply power to 20 boards, and how do you create a box that makes it easy to slide them in and out? How do you get the temperature, warm enough but not too warm? So that's an example of the jack of all trades sort of things that I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's in the garage age.
And Woz had been working at HP. Was he influenced by HP's methods in setting up Apple?
Well, we were all influenced by Hewlett-Packard because it was really the standard bearer of technical excellence, of creating excellent products, products that performed exceedingly well, that were the best in the world, that were extremely reliable, and so forth. So building excellent products in all the ways they need to be truly excellent was something that we all wanted to do. I think that Woz, who was the engineer who designed the circuitry, he had always wanted to be technically excellent. His father was a mathematician and an engineer, and he wanted to be as good as his father. He wanted to be known as an outstanding engineer. And so in addition to having the example of Hewlett-Packard as excellent engineering, it was also kind of in his DNA, to pursue excellence. He also had an amazing mind, an ability to do things that other people did in different ways that were much more efficient. So, for example, when we had the Apple II and we were saving programs onto cassette tapes and loading them back from cassette tapes, which is slow and a little bit unreliable, and when small floppy disk drives came on the market, we wanted to have a floppy drive for the Apple computer. So he designed a floppy disk controller. But he approached it in an entirely different way than anyone else.
Yeah.
So instead of making a floppy disk controller that had 70 integrated circuits, his had 6.
Yeah.